If you call my cell phone, pick up the phone. I'm not going to give that number, but if you were to call this number, this is what you would get as a message from me. Hi, this is Wayne Dyer that you've reached, and I want to feel good. If your call is designed to do anything other than that, you have reached the wrong number, and I urge you to call Dr. Phil. But feeling good is perhaps the most important thing that I can talk to you about here in cleaning up this link. If you open up the Torah, this ancient spiritual text, the Old Testament, and go to the very opening lines, Genesis 1:1, it says, what? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Pretty simple. God is infinite. Out of this source came all the material worlds. And then if you read down 31 lines later, it says, and all that God created was good. So good and God are synonymous, aren't they? Good and God, just an O, just one extra O. So that when you say, I want to feel good, as you'll see as this program unfolds, you're really saying, in a way, I want to feel God. I want to feel whatever this beautiful source of all, this divine mind, this source of all things, I want to feel what it feels. Now you might say to yourself, yeah, it's easy to say I want to feel good, but how can I feel good when so much around me is bad? How can I feel good if my sister-in-law has cancer? And how can I feel good if I know that over on the other side of this planet there are people who are starving to death? And how can I feel good if there are people who are poor and I have money, and there are people who are starving? And how can I feel good when my children act in the way that they act? Or how can I feel good? And I suggest to you that when you say I want to feel good, what you're saying is I want to feel God. I want to feel this. I want to connect here. And I want to offer this to you as a very important and powerful piece of advice that came to me years ago. You cannot get sick enough to heal one person on this planet. And you cannot get poor enough to make one person wealthy on this planet. And you cannot get confused enough to unconfuse one person on this planet. No amount of your feeling bad, when you say feeling bad, what you do is you lose your connection to source. And when you lose your connection to source, what happens is you create something called resistance. I can't do this. It's not possible. I don't deserve it. It's just not something that I can do. And when you create this kind of resistance, you have emotions. And these emotions become sadness, fear, worry, anxiety. And what I'd like to offer you is a way for you to use these emotions that you are experiencing at any time in your life and use them as a system, as a barometer, as a guidance system to say to yourself, what kinds of thoughts am I having that are keeping me from being in rapport with this field of intention? And at any moment that you're not feeling good, you are attracting exactly the opposite of what it is that you would like to attract into your life. You are using this as a way to keep yourself from feeling God or feeling good. If you are listening to the news, and the news is filled with all of the reasons why you should be depressed, and it's not an accident that then they are sponsored by all of the reasons why you should take these narcotics or these pills or whatever it is in order to get over. So here's some depression, and wait a minute, we'll be right back. Here's a way out of it, okay? And every thought that you have that says I can't do it is resistance to connecting to source. And every thought that you have that says it's never worked before, that's resistance to connecting to this source, to what is being, what I call vibrating through source energy, getting back to your, having your desires, what you want to create in vibrational harmony with this highest energy in the universe. My teacher in India one time, Nisargadatta Maharaj, said, when he was asked the question, there's wars going on in Pakistan, there's people having difficulties here, there's people dying, there's starvation. How can you say that I can heal myself and how can you be at peace when you see all of this going around? And you know what he said to his devotee? He said, in my world, nothing ever goes wrong. What a powerful idea that is.
There is a weight that no hand can measure and no scale can define. It does not rest on your shoulders, but you feel it pressing down. It does not bind your ankles, yet it keeps you from rising. And it is this weight, invisible, yet undeniable, that keeps so many of us from taking the flight into peace, into purpose, into freedom. It is the weight of what we refuse to release. The stories we rehearse, the wounds we keep fresh, the guilt we cradle like a memory we believe we must protect. And though we long to soar, we stay grounded because we've convinced ourselves that to let go is to forget, but forgetting is not the way forward. Releasing is. You cannot take flight while dragging yesterday behind you like a rusted anchor. You cannot rise into the light of your divine essence while gripping the shadows of resentment. The soul was not designed for heaviness. The soul was made to move like wind through skylight, spacious, free, but ego convinces us that our identity depends on the weight we carry, that our suffering is who we are, that our hurt makes us real. And so we hold on, we grip tightly to the pain, thinking it gives us meaning. But I ask you now, what has pain truly given you besides more of itself? You were not born into this world to suffer endlessly under the burden of your past. You were not sent here by Source to collect wounds like medals and wear your trauma like a crown of proof. You were born to remember that you are already whole, already enough, already free. But you cannot awaken to that truth if your hands are full of what no longer serves you. Flight requires emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense of lack, but the kind of emptiness that is sacred, the emptiness of surrender, of openness, of trust. Birds do not rise by adding more weight to their wings. They rise because they were never meant to carry anything but the wind. And you, dear soul, were never meant to carry all that you're holding. Let go, not because it erases the past, but because the past was never meant to be your prison. Let go of who they said you were. Let go of what didn't happen the way you hoped. Let go of the apology that never came. Let go of the outcome you never received. Let go of the belief that you are broken. You are not broken. You are burdened. And there's a great difference. A bird with a stone in its beak is not incapable of flight. It simply needs to drop what it's holding. And the most powerful act you can perform in this lifetime is to unclench your spiritual fists and release what you've clung to for far too long. We live in a world that glorifies accumulation of things, of titles, of experiences, but also of wounds, of grievances, of stories. But your path to peace is subtraction, not addition. Every spiritual master, every awakened soul, every truly liberated being will tell you it's not what you gain that sets you free, it's what you release. The Buddha did not awaken by becoming more. He awakened by becoming less identified with form, with desire, with self. What are you willing to become less of so that you can become more of what you truly are? Are you willing to be less right so you can be more peaceful? Are you willing to be less certain so you can be more trusting? Are you willing to be less attached so you can be more free? Because to fly, you must let the heaviness fall away. And the heaviest thing you carry is the belief that you must carry it. There is a sacred law of the universe that is always at work. The more you resist letting go, the more you attract situations that force you to. Because your soul knows what your ego denies that your healing is in the release. That freedom is not granted by anything outside you. It is unveiled when you unbind yourself from within. So many people pray for peace but refuse to put down the sword. So many seek happiness while holding on to what hurts. But you cannot have both. You cannot live in the light and feed the shadows. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground, and you cannot evolve while protecting your pain. You have a choice. And this moment, this very breath, is the threshold. You can continue to identify with your wounds. You can keep rehearsing the stories of what they did, what you lost, what didn't go your way. Or you can stop. You can take a holy pause, and you can say to yourself, I've carried this long enough. I don't need this to be me anymore. This is not denial. This is liberation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. Releasing is not passive. It is powerful. It is not forgetting the past. It is understanding that your past does not have the authority to define your future unless you keep giving it the microphone. You came here to transcend, to transmute, to rise beyond, not to escape life, but to remember who you are within it. And you are not the hurt you experienced. You are the awareness that held it. You are not the betrayal. You are the witness. You are not the grief. You are the vast presence in which that grief arose and passed. You are not the weight. You are the sky. And nothing that happened in your story is heavy enough to keep you from remembering your true nature unless you decide it is. Take a moment now, not with your mind, but with your heart. Ask yourself quietly, what have I made heavier than it needs to be? What story are you still living inside of that no longer matches your vision of peace? What label, what memory, what name or identity have you fused with your sense of self, and does it still serve your highest path? If it doesn't, let it go. If it hurts, bless it and let it go. If it stirs up anger, acknowledge it and let it go. If it makes you feel like less than the infinite soul you are, breathe deeply and let it go. No one will do this for you. This is your sacred responsibility. No one else is inside your consciousness with a broom, sweeping out the resentment, the doubt, the guilt. Only you can do that. And you do it not because others deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up unburdened. You deserve to feel light. And flight, true spiritual flight, is what happens when the soul remembers that its natural state is freedom. You are not your wounds. You are not your fears. You are not the broken dreams or the roads that didn't lead where you hoped. You are the one who has survived it all and now stands at the edge of a new becoming. But you can't take off until you release what weighs you down. The caterpillar must surrender the ground before it becomes the butterfly. The leaf must release the tree to dance with the wind. And the soul must release the ego's grip to remember it was never confined to begin with. Release is the sacred act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer choose to carry what you never asked me to hold. You don't heal by holding tighter. You heal by surrendering. And as you surrender, a miracle occurs. The heart begins to lighten, the breath deepens, the mind softens, the world looks less threatening, love finds you more easily, joy visits more often. And suddenly, the life you were meant to live is no longer on hold because you stopped carrying the delay disguised as pain. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to remember. The sky has always been waiting for you to rise. So often we say we want to be free, but what we really mean is we want to be free on our terms. We want to let go, but only if we know what will come next. We want to trust, but only if we can control the outcome. And this is where most souls stall. Not because life isn't offering us wings, but because we're still trying to fly while dragging the ground behind us. But let me ask you this. Has clinging ever brought you peace? Has gripping ever led to grace? Or have you noticed that every time you let go, really let go, the next step appeared more clearly, the burden grew lighter, and something inside you finally exhaled? The irony of the spiritual path is that we do not grow by adding more. We grow by shedding what was never us to begin with. Not one layer of pain was your true self. Not one scar defined you. Not one fearful thought ever spoke with the voice of your soul. And yet, we identify with them because we've forgotten the art of being rather than becoming. We think we must become something extraordinary. But the soul is already extraordinary. The only task is to remove what clouds that remembrance, like a sculptor chipping away at marble to reveal the figure within your journey. It's not about chasing something new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. Your divine essence, and this essence is weightless. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to free yourself. You don't need to gather more knowledge. You need to unlearn the lies. You don't need to become powerful. You already are. You simply need to drop the thoughts, the judgments, the traumas, and the identities that told you otherwise. The ego says, you must be more. The soul whispers, you already are. And when you listen closely, you will hear that whisper underneath every heartbeat, every breath, every still moment where you're not trying to be anything, you are simply present. In that moment, you are flying. Because flight is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is alignment with who you truly are beneath the noise. Now, you may ask, how do I begin to let go? You begin by noticing, notice when a thought carries heaviness. Notice when a memory returns not to heal you, but to punish you. Notice when a belief makes your chest tight or your energy dim. That is not truth. That is ego disguised as memory. And you have the power right here, right now, to witness it, thank it for its role, and release it like a bird from the cage of your mind. This is not a one-time act. It is a sacred practice. Every day, you must ask yourself, does this thought serve my flight? Does this feeling expand me or bind me? Is this belief lifting me or holding me down? If it is not helping you soar, it is not coming from your highest self. Release it. You don't need it. And in its place, choose a lighter thought, a loving thought, a truer thought. Choose gratitude over grievance. Choose faith over fear. Choose now over then. And choose to see every single moment of your life, even the painful ones, as teachers rather than burdens. Because when you shift your perception, what once weighed you down becomes the very force that lifts you. Do you see the paradox? What was once pain becomes purpose. What was once failure becomes foundation. What was once sorrow becomes spaciousness. But only when you stop resisting, only when you stop identifying with it as you. And in that sacred shift, the alchemy of awakening your soul begins to remember you were never the wound. You were always the healer. You were never the broken piece. You were always the whole. You were never the story. You were always the silent awareness in which the story unfolded. And you were never meant to carry it all. That was never your purpose. So ask yourself now, what is the weight I've been carrying that I no longer wish to bring into tomorrow? Perhaps it's the weight of comparison, the belief that you must measure your worth against others, that if someone else succeeds, you've somehow failed, that your path must look like theirs to be valid. But the truth is, no two souls have the same sky to fly in. You have your own direction, your own design, your own sacred winds. And when you stop comparing your flight to someone else's, you begin to soar in your own unique rhythm. Or perhaps it's the weight of shame, the echo of past choices you no longer align with. But hear this with all your heart. You are not your past. You are the awareness that learned from it. Guilt serves no one when it becomes a home. Let it be a guide, not a jail. Take the lesson, release the judgment, and free yourself. The soul does not evolve by condemning itself. It evolves by choosing love again and again. Maybe the weight you carry is anger that hot, consuming fire that promises strength but only burns the vessel that holds it. Anger often masks grief, and grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Because you were not born to be consumed by flames. You were born to be illuminated by light. Or perhaps it's the weight of the unknown, the fear of what you can't control, can't see, can't predict. But my friend, life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be trusted. Faith is the wings, uncertainty is the sky, and trust is the wind beneath it all. When you stop needing to know where you're going, you finally arrive in the now, and the now is the only place you ever truly had to be. So much of what we carry isn't ours to hold. We carry expectations we never agreed to, roles we never wanted, pain passed down through generations. But just because it's been handed to you does not mean you have to carry it forward. The chain ends when you say it does. The pattern dissolves when you choose to wake up. And waking up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply a moment of quiet clarity when you sit alone with your breath and realize, I'm done carrying what doesn't feel like love. That's the moment the flight begins. And once you taste it, even once, you will never forget what it feels like to be free. There is something miraculous that happens when you no longer resist the falling away, when you no longer mourn what is leaving, but bless it on its way. In that holy space, you are not losing, you are remembering. You are not being emptied, you are being refined. The acorn must crack for the oak to emerge. The shell must break for the light to pour in. And yes, it feels like loss, but in truth, it is birth. The death of who you are not is the beginning of who you've always been. Do not grieve what you release. It was never yours to keep. You are not here to hoard old identities. You are here to embody truth. And truth is light. Truth is weightless. Truth needs no defense, no protection, no mask. The most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with appearance is to become weightless, to become real, to say, I don't need to hold this story anymore. I don't need to defend this pain. I don't need to explain why I'm healing. I only need to return to peace. Because peace does not argue, peace does not beg, peace does not carry a ledger of wrongs. It does not keep score. Peace simply is. And when you stop trying to earn it, when you stop believing it must be deserved, you realize peace is your natural state. You were never without it. You were only distracted. The distractions came in many forms. The noise of comparison, the addiction to busyness, the need to be seen, the compulsion to be understood. But peace never left you. It was waiting quietly underneath the rubble of all that trying. Flight is not about rising above others. It is about rising above the noise, the inner dialogue that says, you're not enough, you haven't done enough, you don't deserve rest. That voice is not the voice of God. That is the voice of conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with it, you begin to fly. Because flight isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging life from a higher vantage point. When a bird soars above the storm, it's not avoiding the sky, it's simply rising to where the storm no longer reaches. And so must you. There will always be chaos on the ground, always some drama, some fear, some grievance pulling at your feet. But you are not your feet, you are your wings. And your wings are made of faith, of surrender, of the deep knowing that you are carried by something greater than circumstance. What is this something greater? Call it what you will. God, Source, the Tao, divine intelligence. The name matters less than the experience of it. And the experience of it is this: peace without reason, joy without cause, love without condition. When you rest in that space, you will realize nothing was ever missing. You just couldn't feel it through the weight you were carrying. Release is the doorway to the divine. You do not need to beg the universe for peace. You need only make space for it. Peace does not need to be created. It only needs to be uncovered. Imagine your soul as a radiant sun always shining. The clouds of resentment, fear, guilt, and control only obscure it, never extinguish it. The work is not to chase light. The work is to dissolve clouds. And how do you dissolve a cloud? Not with force, not with war, with awareness. Awareness is the great dissolver. When you see clearly what you've been carrying without judgment, without shame, the weight begins to lift. So take a breath now and simply ask, what am I ready to see? What truth have I avoided? Because I feared what it would ask me to release. Perhaps it's the truth that your identity is not in your trauma. Perhaps it's the truth that your worth is not defined by your productivity. Perhaps it's the truth that your pain has been a teacher, not a punishment. Or perhaps it's the truth that you're allowed to let go, even if no one else says sorry. There are no prerequisites to freedom. There is only your decision, your inner yes. And the moment you say yes to release, the sky opens, the burdens loosen, and your wings begin to stretch again. But the ego will not go quietly. It will tell you, if you let go, you'll be exposed. If you release control, you'll fall. If you forgive, you'll be weak. None of that is true. It is the ego that fears the sky because it cannot survive in openness. The ego feeds on structure, on story, on certainty. But the soul is water. The soul is wind. The soul is light. It cannot be contained. And when you live from soul, you do not need to know. You only need to be. There is an ancient wisdom that lives inside you, a compass that doesn't use logic but resonance. You feel it when you are near truth. You feel it when you are near joy. You feel it when something heavy suddenly feels light, and you know this is the path. Follow that. That is your wings speaking, and they will never lead you astray. But you must be willing to silence the noise, to step away from the collective panic, the chronic comparison, the constant mental commentary. You must dare to pause, to breathe, to listen inwardly, because in that space, the divine speaks, not with thunder, but with stillness, not with answers, but with presence. And that presence is what lifts you. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are remembering that you are already in it. The weight you've been carrying is not keeping you grounded. It's keeping you distracted from the fact that you are already soaring. You just haven't opened your eyes to it. The more you release, the clearer you see, the lighter you become, and the more you begin to trust not the future, not the outcome, but yourself, your soul, your center. This is the liberation the saints spoke of. The freedom the mystics danced in, the peace the sages pointed to when they said, be still and know. Know what? Know that you are already home. Know that the wings were never outside of you. Know that everything you've ever sought is not in the distance, it is within. But it cannot be felt while carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. So lay it down, beloved soul. Lay down the proving. Lay down the defending. Lay down the striving. Lay down the waiting for permission. You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to fly, not someday, not when it all makes sense, not when they apologize, but now. Now is your moment. Now is your portal. Now is the beginning of the rest of your flight. When the soul begins to remember its weightlessness, a quiet revolution takes place. Not in the external world, but in the inner kingdom. This is the true uprising, not against others, not against life, but against the false self you've been conditioned to carry. This uprising is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply refuses to carry what is no longer aligned with light. And in this refusal, a powerful truth emerges. You are not here to hold on, you are here to flow through. You are not a container for pain, you are a vessel for presence. And presence is too sacred to be filled with what is no longer real. So if it no longer feels like love, it no longer belongs in your hands. If it no longer resonates with peace, it no longer belongs in your heart. And if it no longer brings you closer to truth, it no longer belongs in your mind. You came to this earth not to collect, but to remember. And memory, true memory, is not about the past. It is about your origin, the divine essence that preceded all experience, all trauma, all identity. The light you were before the name, before the wound, before the story. That light has never been dimmed, only buried. And every act of letting go is an excavation, a return, a resurrection. The ego will call it loss, but the soul knows better. The soul calls it rebirth. Yes, rebirth. You will be reborn many times in this life, not just once. And each rebirth will cost you the version of yourself you thought you had to be. Each flight will ask you to shed another layer, to drop another burden, to trust more deeply than before. This is not regression, this is expansion. Every shedding is sacred. You shed illusions, you shed attachments, you shed roles you never truly agreed to, and one by one you return to the center of who you are, vast, open, free. And when you return there, the world begins to look different. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer perform, you presence. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer ask, how do I control this? But instead, what is this here to teach me? This is what it means to live from soul. And soul does not carry the past like a wound. It carries only the present like a flame. In that flame, everything that is false will burn away, and that is the grace of it. You are not being punished, you are being purified. All that is being asked of you is this: stop carrying what you don't want to become. If you hold resentment, you become it. If you carry fear, it becomes your lens. If you grip the past, it becomes your prison. But if you hold truth, you become peace. If you carry stillness, you become presence. If you walk in surrender, you become weightless. And when you become weightless, you don't even have to try to fly. You simply rise, like a feather no longer pinned down by ego, like a breath finally released into the world, like a soul no longer apologizing for its light. This is your destiny, not to strive, not to suffer, but to rise. And this rising cannot be done from effort alone. It must be done from trust. Trust that life is not working against you, it is working through you. That every detour was a redirection. That every heartbreak was a doorway. That every ending was a sacred invitation to begin again lighter this time. Have you noticed how nature never clings? The trees release their leaves without asking when the new ones will come. The river flows forward, never backward, never doubting its direction. The sun does not mourn the night, it simply returns again and again. And yet, we, the most conscious of creation, resist this natural rhythm. We hold on to last season's leaves. We grip the banks of the past. We beg the night not to fall. But healing is in the rhythm, and peace is in the release. So stop trying to force stillness through control. Allow it through surrender. Stop demanding that life obey your timeline. Let it unfold according to the greater wisdom that forms stars and births galaxies. That same wisdom is guiding your unfolding. You don't need to rush. You don't need to fight. You don't need to earn your flight. You only need to step out of the illusion that you were ever grounded to begin with. Your spirit was never bound. It was only your identification with the binding that made you feel stuck. It is not your job to carry every lesson forever. Some lessons are meant to be learned and then released. Some pains are meant to be felt and then transmuted. And Some experiences are meant to pass through you, not stay inside you. Release is not rejection. It is integration. You take the wisdom. You leave the wound. You take the growth. You leave the guilt. You take the lesson. You leave the label. You are not who you were when the pain happened. You are who you became after it. And the more you release the story, the more you can honor the strength it gave you without needing to keep reliving the scene. You cannot write a new chapter while rereading the old one. And you cannot fly into your future while defending the architecture of your past. So breathe now. Breathe and ask your soul, what am I defending that I no longer even believe in? Because that is where the heaviest weights hide in old beliefs you don't even resonate with anymore. Beliefs like, I must be perfect. I'm not worthy unless I achieve. I'm only lovable if I'm needed. I can't rest until I've proven something. These beliefs are not you. They are inherited, adopted, programmed. And they are optional. Choose again. Choose freedom over form. Choose essence over expectation. Choose truth over tradition. You do not owe anyone the version of you that you've outgrown. Your only allegiance is to your becoming. And becoming requires lightness. Becoming requires courage. Becoming requires space. And above all, becoming requires letting go. There is nothing left to prove. No weight left worth carrying. You have already survived what was meant to break you. You are here, and you are free to choose peace, not someday, but now. So put it all down. The apology that never came, the identity that no longer fits, the guilt that was never yours, the grief you've already honored, the expectations that exhaust you, the fear that says you're not ready. Let it all fall. Because the moment you stop gripping the past, the future no longer frightens you. And the moment you stop defending the pain, healing finds you without effort. You don't need to chase purpose. You are purpose. Once you stop covering it up with everything you think you must be, the sky does not explain itself to the ground. It just opens wide, blue, boundless. So must you. Your lightness is your truth. Your peace is your power. And your freedom is already here beneath the weight you are finally willing to release. So rise. You're ready. Let go and fly. There is nothing broken in you, nothing that needs repair. You are not a machine gone wrong or a puzzle with missing pieces. You are not a project that needs managing or a story that needs rewriting to suit someone else's narrative. You are not here to be fixed because you are not faulty. You are here to be freed. Freed from the illusion that you ever needed to be more than what you are in this sacred breathing moment. From the time we arrive on this earth, we are bombarded with subtle suggestions that we are incomplete, that we are somehow not enough, not yet, not quite, not ever, unless we strive, unless we earn, unless we prove. But the truth, the eternal truth is this: you arrived whole. You arrived divine, you arrived worthy, you arrived enough. What came later was conditioning. What came later were opinions. What came later were stories that others had written in their own pain and unknowingly passed on to you. But the soul beneath those stories, it has never changed. You see, the soul doesn't need fixing. It only longs to be remembered. It only longs to be released from the prison of your own forgetting. You are not your wounds. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are the awareness beneath it, all spacious, still, unshaken, and eternal. You are the witness who sees it all but is bound by none of it. So why do we spend so much time trying to fix ourselves? Because we have believed the loudest voice, not the truest one. We have given our attention to the surface noise, the opinions of the world, the judgments of culture, the comparisons we've made, and in doing so, we have silenced the whisper of our inner knowing that sacred voice that does not shout, that does not condemn, but gently reminds us, you were never meant to live like this. We don't need to become someone else to be free. We only need to remove what is not us. And the beautiful thing is, freedom does not require force. It requires surrender. Not a giving up, but a giving over. A letting go of the armor we built to survive in a world that taught us to fear being ourselves. The pain we carry is often not our own. It is the inherited fear of those who came before us. Their doubt, their scarcity, their trauma, their shame, passed on not because they were cruel, but because they were asleep. And now we have the choice not to fix what they gave us, but to release it. We were taught to seek wholeness in doing, in earning, and achieving, as if we were born empty and must spend our lives filling a void. But there is no void in the soul. Only the illusion of separation from the source that created you. When you return to that source, when you become still, when you breathe, when you listen, you begin to see with new eyes. You begin to remember that wholeness was never something to seek. It is something to return to, something to uncover, something that's been buried beneath layers of expectation, fear, and identity. Imagine a magnificent sculpture hidden beneath a block of stone. The sculptor does not add anything to the marble, he removes what is not the masterpiece. And so it is with your life. Healing is not about becoming something new. It's about shedding what you are not. And in that shedding, you find the freedom you've been chasing all along. There is no need to run anymore. There is no need to strive toward some imagined perfection. The soul does not evolve by force. It unfolds by grace, by stillness, by trust, by the deep inner knowing that nothing real can be threatened, that who you truly are cannot be damaged, that the self beneath all the noise, the timeless, formless, eternal self, does not need therapy, does not need improvement. It needs only recognition. And when you begin to see yourself through the eyes of the divine, you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And begin to ask, what do I need to let go of that's not mine? You begin to ask, what story am I still telling that's keeping me small? You begin to ask, whose approval am I still chasing, and why do I believe I need it? These are not questions to judge yourself, they are keys to your own prison. Because the only thing keeping you from freedom is the belief that you are not already free. You were conditioned to believe that your worth was tied to doing, but your worth is in your being. You were taught to hustle for love, but love is your nature. You were raised to believe peace is something to find, but peace is what happens when you stop running. The ego will tell you that you're not enough, that you must strive harder, perform better, prove your value, but the soul waits patiently for the day you turn inward and remember, you are not your ego. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the role you play, the name you were given, the mask you wear. You are not your mistakes or your achievements. You are not what they said about you, and you are not what you said about yourself when you forgot who you were. You are the sky, not the weather. You are the ocean, not the waves. You are the light, not the lampshade. And when you recognize this, when you truly embody this, the need to fix yourself begins to fall away. You stop trying to polish your reflection and start honoring the radiance that's always been there. Freedom is not the absence of flaws, it's the absence of judgment. It's the end of resistance. It's the softening that happens when you meet yourself with compassion instead of criticism. When you hold your sadness like a child and say, you are safe with me. When you embrace your confusion without trying to solve it. When you allow your humanity without labeling it as failure. This is the paradox of awakening. The moment you stop trying to change yourself is the moment transformation begins. Because true change is not born from shame. It is born from love. When you finally see yourself clearly, not as damaged, but divine, you don't need to be fixed. You simply allow your true self to be seen, to be known, to be honored. And in that space, life begins to unfold in its own miraculous rhythm. There is a great stillness within you, deeper than your fear, deeper than your past. It is the stillness of your own divine essence, that sacred flame that was never extinguished, only covered. And when you sit in silence, when you breathe deeply, when you let go of the need to prove or protect or perform, that stillness becomes your teacher. It whispers the truth you've always known, that you are not here to become worthy. You are here to remember that you already are. The world may never affirm this truth for you. In fact, it often does the opposite. It celebrates effort, not essence. It rewards masks, not authenticity. But the soul doesn't care for applause. It longs for alignment. It longs for you to remember what it whispered when you were still a child, before the conditioning, before the comparison, before the pretending. That whisper said, "You are already home. You are already whole. You are already free." But to hear it now, you must unlearn. You must unlearn the belief that healing comes from adding more and more books, more affirmations, more rituals, more effort. Sometimes healing is subtraction. Sometimes the medicine is silence. Sometimes the breakthrough is in the breakdown. And sometimes the most spiritual act is to stop trying and simply allow yourself to be exactly as you are, without resistance, without apology. This doesn't mean you won't grow. It means your growth will no longer be a frantic race to fix what you believe is broken. Instead, it becomes a gentle unfolding, a return to your true nature, the way a rose doesn't strive to bloom, but simply opens in the light. You were born to open, not to earn the sun, but to reveal what has always been hidden beneath the armor of self-doubt and the weight of expectation. Look around at nature. The tree does not apologize for how it bends toward the light. The river does not question its twists. The mountain does not feel shame for its stillness. The moon does not ask permission to shine. And yet, you, the most miraculous creation of all, were told somewhere along the way that you must apologize for simply being who you are. That you must hide your tenderness, that your sensitivity is weakness, that your joy must be earned, your tears must be silenced, and your uniqueness must be diluted so others feel more comfortable. But you were never meant to be acceptable. You were meant to be authentic. And authenticity begins the moment you stop trying to be more and start allowing yourself to be enough. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you are, a divine expression of life itself. You do not need to fix your pain. You need to listen to it. Let it speak. Let it rise. Let it move through you like the tide. Don't dam it up with false positivity or drown it with distractions. Let it tell you where it hurts. Let it show you what it's still carrying. And then, not with judgment, but with compassion, place your hand over your heart and say, "I see you. I hear you. I'm with you now." You've tried being hard on yourself. You've tried self-criticism and guilt and endless striving. Where did it get you? Tired, disconnected, afraid to slow down, afraid to stop, afraid to be still. But try love, try gentleness, try radical self-acceptance, not because you've earned it, but because your soul was never unworthy to begin with. It's easy to love yourself when you feel successful, inspired, enlightened. But freedom is found when you can love yourself in the confusion, in the darkness, in the mess. The soul doesn't reject your mess. It moves through it like light through shadow. It doesn't say, "You should be better by now." It says, "Welcome, you're safe here." Let's go deeper. And when you go deeper, you'll find the pain wasn't asking for punishment, it was asking for presence. It wasn't a sign that you are broken. It was a sign that something old is ready to be released. You are not your trauma. You are the space that witnessed it. You are not your depression. You are the awareness that feels it. You are not your anxiety. You are the stillness beneath it. And when you stop identifying with the waves and remember you are the ocean, everything changes. Not because your circumstances change overnight, but because you stop resisting what is, and in doing so, you become truly free. You do not have to pretend anymore. You do not have to force joy. You do not have to chase perfection. You are allowed to be exactly where you are, with every contradiction, every question unanswered. Enlightenment is not the absence of humanity, it is the embrace of it. The fully awakened soul does not live above the storm, it knows how to dance in the rain. So stop asking, what do I need to fix in me? And begin asking, what do I need to love in me? Stop trying to escape your feelings and instead invite them to tea. They have wisdom. They have stories. They have roots that trace back generations. You don't need to analyze every detail. You don't need to solve every wound. You need only to stay with it, breathe through it, trust the process of release, not as a technique, but as a sacred return to self. Because the self, the real self, the one untouched by the world, has never been damaged. It is not a personality. It is not an identity. It is not a role. It is the pure light of presence. It is the observer. It is the stillness beneath all doing. And when you sit in that stillness long enough, when you become aware of the awareness itself, healing ceases to be a goal and becomes a natural byproduct of returning to truth. You are already that which you seek. Not someday, not if, not once you've read one more book or healed one more wound. Right now, in this breath, in this moment, as you are, the only veil is the thought that you are not. Spiritual freedom is not about becoming better, it's about becoming real. Not in the eyes of others, but in your own. It's the moment you stop waiting for someone else to see you and you finally see yourself. The moment you stop waiting for permission and you grant it to yourself, the moment you stop running from your past and realize that every step, even the painful ones, were part of your unfolding. Nothing has been wasted, not your detours, not your heartbreak, not your silence, not your confusion. Even your regrets have led you here to the edge of awakening, to the doorway of truth. And now you must decide, will you keep trying to fix yourself into worthiness, or will you lay down your tools and simply return to your divine essence? Because freedom begins when you no longer believe that your value is negotiable. When you stop asking the world to validate what was already written in the stars the day you were born, you were not made to be perfect. You were made to be real. And in your realness, you radiate more light than any mask ever could. The healing you seek is not in becoming someone else. It's in unbecoming everything you are not. Every belief that says you're too much or not enough. Every lie that says you must earn love. Every inherited shame that says your emotions are inconvenient. Every label that was never yours to wear. Let them fall away. Let them burn in the fire of your awareness. And let what's left, the raw, tender, powerful truth of who you are, stand tall in its sacredness. Because the truth is, you don't need to be fixed. You never did. You only need to stop believing the thought that says you do. The illusion that you need fixing is born from comparison. You measured yourself against someone else's path, someone else's timeline, someone else's rules. But the soul doesn't compare, it knows. It knows the perfection of your own journey. It knows that the seasons of your life do not follow a clock on the wall or a calendar in a planner. They follow the rhythm of the cosmos, the divine choreography of unfolding. Your winter is not your punishment. It is your preparation. Your delay is not your denial. It is your deepening. And your breakdown is not your end. It is your initiation. You were never behind. You were becoming. You were never off track. You were being rerouted. You were never late. You were ripening. And all this time you thought life was punishing you, when it was actually preparing you to carry your light with humility, to carry your freedom with reverence, to carry your voice with truth. There is something in you that has never been touched by shame, something in you that has never forgotten your original light. And if you sit with yourself in silence, if you listen deeply without trying to solve, that something will rise. And it will not be loud. It will be still. Like the hush of early dawn before the world wakes. Like the sacred pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. That stillness is your truth. That stillness is yourself. And it doesn't need healing. It needs space. You do not become more valuable by becoming more palatable. You do not become more worthy by becoming more agreeable. You do not become more loved by becoming less you. The moment you sacrifice your truth for someone else's comfort, you lose the very freedom your soul came here to embody. You were not born to fit in, you were born to awaken. To show others what is possible when a human being stops trying to fix themselves and starts trusting the perfection of their own becoming. And yes, it can be messy, but freedom is not clean. It is raw, it is vulnerable, it is beautifully human. And in your most human moments, your tears, your fears, your quiet longings, the light of your divinity shines the brightest. It says, even this belongs. Even this is sacred. Even this is part of the unfolding. Let go of the belief that your pain disqualifies you. It qualifies you. It softens your heart, humbles your mind, cracks the shell of the ego so the soul can pour through. Do not hide it. Do not bury it under spiritual bypassing or intellectual armor. Bring it into the light. Hold it in your hands like a sacred relic. Let it teach you. Let it open you. Let it remind you that even the darkest night holds a purpose you may not yet understand. The caterpillar doesn't understand the chrysalis. It only knows stillness. It only knows the surrender of no longer crawling. It only knows the silence that precedes transformation. And so it is with your journey. You may not understand why it feels so heavy. You may not see the wings forming beneath your skin, but one day you will break through what once confined you. One day you will fly, not because you fixed yourself, but because you remembered yourself. And that is the great paradox. The more you try to change yourself from a place of rejection, the more you suffer. But the moment you embrace yourself fully in the raw, the real, the incomplete, something miraculous happens. You begin to heal, not by force, but by love. You begin to transform not by effort, but by grace. You begin to rise, not because you climbed a ladder of self-improvement, but because you laid down the burden of pretending and let yourself be carried by truth. You don't need a new identity. You don't need to perform your healing. You don't need to prove your progress. You only need to breathe, to pause, to return. And in that return, to whisper softly to yourself, I am here, I am whole, I am free. Your freedom was never lost. It was only forgotten, covered over by the noise of the world, hidden beneath layers of conditioning and survival. But the truth cannot be erased. It can only be ignored. And the moment you turn toward it, the moment you trust that whisper more than the scream of fear, the veil lifts. Not all at once, sometimes gently, sometimes painfully, but always perfectly timed. You have tried being everything you thought you needed to be. Now try being nothing but who you are. You have tried controlling every outcome. Now try trusting the mystery. You have tried running. Now try resting. You have tried earning. Now try receiving. And see what happens when you no longer demand anything from life except to show up with an open heart. You are not your defense mechanisms. You are not your coping patterns. You are not your shadows. You are the one who is aware of them. And awareness is healing. It does not condemn. It does not fix. It simply sees. And in seeing without judgment, the very patterns that once held you captive begin to dissolve, not because you fought them, but because you loved yourself through them. So many spend their lives chasing enlightenment as if it were some peak to reach, some badge to wear. But true awakening is so simple. It's the moment you sit down, exhale, and realize, I am okay. I am enough. I don't have to become anything other than this. That is what the great mystic spoke of. That is what freedom feels like. Not a constant high, not a state of perfection, but a profound peace with what is. A deep yes to your own aliveness. The soul doesn't need to be impressive. It doesn't care how many people approve of you. It only cares if you approve of you. If you can look in the mirror and not flinch, if you can stand in your truth without shrinking, if you can walk into the world no longer asking, am I enough? But instead declaring, I am. And when you live from that place, something extraordinary happens. You begin to attract people who recognize your truth, not because you perform for them, but because your energy resonates with their soul. You begin to draw in experiences that match your authenticity, not because you manipulated them, but because life mirrors back what you believe. And the more you embody your own freedom, the more you become a permission slip for others to do the same. You don't need to be fixed, just freed. Freed from old identities, freed from generational wounds, freed from expectations that were never yours, freed from the lie that says you must be anyone other than who you already are. The healing is in the allowing, the freedom is in the remembering, the awakening is in the surrender. So pause right now, breathe. Feel your heart beating. That is not brokenness. That is life. That is love. That is divinity pulsing through you. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to fight for it. You are it. There is nothing wrong with you. There never was. There is only the forgetting and the sacred, glorious, unstoppable journey of remembering. And so we return not to where we began, but to the place within that never moved. You may have searched in books and rituals and gurus and systems. You may have traveled miles, spent years, and emptied your heart looking for the key to wholeness. But the key was never far. It was always within. Not in the striving, but in the surrender. Not in the fixing, but in the releasing. Let it be known, the work is not to fix yourself. The work is to stop abandoning yourself, to stop betraying your truth for the comfort of others, to stop dimming your light to fit the mold of the fearful, to stop apologizing for existing. Your freedom does not come through perfecting your flaws. It comes through honoring your wholeness, even in the presence of those flaws. Because wholeness isn't about being flawless. It's about being true. The wound you thought disqualified you, it made you a healer. The heartbreak you thought was the end, it was a portal. The mistake you thought would define you, it was the invitation to forgive, to rise, to soften into your sacred humanness. And the shame you've carried for years, it was never yours to hold. You can lay it down now. You are safe to be seen. You are safe to be known. You are safe to be loved, not for who you could be, but for who you already are. Can you feel it? The softening in your chest, the quiet recognition in your belly, the sacred breath returning to your body. That is you coming home. That is you remembering. That is you no longer rushing, no longer fighting, no longer trying to fix what was never broken. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived. You are a sacred unfolding, not a final product. There is nothing final about you. You are ongoing, infinite, evolving, yet never incomplete. The seed does not apologize for not being the tree. The moon does not shrink because it is not yet full, neither should you. Because freedom is not something you arrive at. It is something you allow. It is not a mountaintop you must climb. It is a truth you must remember. The prison was never made of steel. It was made of thoughts, of stories, of beliefs, passed down by the afraid, the ashamed, the asleep. And now you awaken. Awakening is not about transcending your humanity. It's about embracing it. It's about seeing that your fear, your sadness, your longing, they are not signs of failure. They are signs of aliveness. Your sensitivity is not a burden, it is your gift. Your longing is not your weakness, it is your guidance. Your emotions are not liabilities, they are invitations to deepen. And when you stop resisting them, when you stop labeling your inner experience as wrong or broken or messy, you begin to live as you were always meant to, free, fluid, whole. There is such power in your softness, such beauty in your vulnerability, such truth in your tenderness. You do not have to harden to survive. You do not have to toughen up to be respected. You do not have to edit your soul for the approval of a world still asleep to its own divinity. Be soft, be open, be real. That is where your strength lives. That is where your peace is born. Forgive yourself, not because you were wrong, but because you believed you were unworthy. Forgive those who hurt you, Not because they were right, but because they too forgot who they were. And in forgiveness, find your wings. Not because you want to fly above life, but because you are finally light enough to walk through it with grace. The path forward is not paved in perfection. It is paved in presence, in allowing, in radical honesty, in compassion for your younger self, in tenderness toward the one inside you who tried so hard to be lovable. That one is not your enemy. That one is not your flaw. That one is your beginning. And now you are your return. Return to your body, return to your breath, return to the space between thoughts where truth still lives. Return to the moment again and again until the moment becomes your home. That's where freedom waits. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Always now. Let them misunderstand you. Let them label you. Let them doubt your path. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it, to walk it, to live so deeply in your truth that others remember their own by the way you move through the world. And no, you will not always get it right. You will falter. You will forget. You will fall into the old stories now and then. But that is not failure. That is the rhythm of remembering. That is the spiral dance of awakening. Each time deeper. Each time softer. Each time freer. So breathe. Feel this moment. Not with your mind, with your being. Can you see? There is nothing to fix. There is only something to feel, something to remember, something to love. And that something is you, whole, sacred, free.